guest is. Can you tell the people who you are for the new generation?
I be the hard body, God body. I come in the divine name of Kenyattah Black, live and direct from Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York.
For sure. For
Wings
sure.
up.
For sure. Peace and love to Brooklyn, man. Brownsville. Peace and love. All right. With that being said, man, I gotta ask you, when did you fall in love with hip hop?
To be honest, I believe I fell in love with hip hop maybe around 88, 1988. You know,
Okay.
I heard music before that was pretty dope, you know, that I liked, but I really fell in love with hip hop during 88. It was the WAP era. People was doing the WAP.
Yeah.
It's real
Yeah.
simple dance. And it
Yeah.
went with the boom bap of the time, you know.
For
Um,
sure.
it was filled with the Cool G raps, the Big Daddy Kanes, the Rakims, Eric B. and Rakims, and you know, and Bismarck, rest in peace, Bismarck.
Rest in peace, Biz.
That time of 88 was just, as a young dude, it was filled. I probably was 9 years old in
Yeah.
88.
Yeah.
So, you know, I fell in
Yeah.
love with the culture of hip hop, not just the music, the culture as in all of the elements
Yeah. Yeah.
involved in, you know, at the same time. Graffiti. I was in love with how it had its own language. It had its own vibe and culture.
Yeah.
How you write on the walls, how you speak to other graffiti writers, it had its own language that was unique in itself. The music was
Yeah.
unique. The fashion was unique. You know, you put together. You wanted to have your own original everything in '88,
Yeah.
and you wanted to look like royalty at the same time. That was the aesthetic. You wanted the
Yeah.
biggest chain. You wanted the 3-finger ring. You wanted to iced out everything. You wanted to show that you was important. It was a time
Yeah.
in where it didn't matter what the social. It was, you know, it wasn't no internet. You hardly had the only time you could get fame was crime. The only time the news vans would come to your neighborhood was crime. So at that time, nobody was on the map unless it was violence.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it was, yeah. So hip hop really played a part in everything back then. You know, for us bringing the community, our community back together. You know, as far as that, you know, the break dancing too. You know, I was gonna say that. You
that's
know.
right. That's right. All of the elements, you know, all of the elements added up to being the b-boy and breakdancing, the MC and the DJing. You know, the
Yeah.
fashion in itself, all of the above, and knowledge yourself, having having something of importance to feel inspired by, and wanting to be a part of it and be active with what you said. You know, not just being
That's real.
selfish with what you got, but actually giving back with what you
Yeah.
learned. You know,
That's real. With that being said, man, what was it like for you growing up in Brooklyn, man, Brownsville?
it was the best and the worst of times, because when you poor, you don't even know you poor.
Yeah.
You just in it, you know, until you leave out, then you get a chance to have something to compare with, you know. So everybody was poverty stricken and heavy violence because of it, you know. And then drugs came around, so that really made it more violent. But
Yeah.
Brownsville was one of these type of places like any other neighborhood, any other hood, just like St. Louis. You have these areas that's proud of their
Yeah.
bravado. Cops couldn't come in. It was already community based. Everybody took care of one another. The grandmothers took care of the kids. The dog, you know,
Yeah.
you couldn't do nothing bad in your neighborhood. So it was community based. And if you violated that, somebody came outside of that violate, and it was like everybody got you. It wasn't one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brownsville got you.
Mm-hmm.
Brownsville swallows you
Yeah.
if
It take a
something
nation to
happened.
raise. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, next question. Can you speak on your introduction to the 5% Nation of Islam?
My introduction, I was born and raised. I had a
Okay.
father, a mother that was living that culture, and I was born in 1979, so I had this for 46 years. I've been
Mm,
learning these same lessons my whole life. I was a kid in kindergarten who learned hello when I left the house, but I knew peace
yeah,
as the greeting in the home.
yeah,
Answering
yeah.
the phone, you said peace. Answer the door, you said peace. When you greet people, you said peace. I went outside and learned hello, hi, and how you doing. I thought that was a weird dichotomy, you know. So,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know, I grew up in it.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Now, this another question. Just because you from Brooklyn, this is one of the fan questions. What's your take on JAYZ and the Haven story? Two best friends getting rich together, then later ending their friendship.
Uh, I believe it's a real dope story for people to look into,
Hmm.
um, because it wasn't bad as people think. They all gained
Yeah,
something from the experience. The Haven, they called him Headache. He
yeah.
was big homie for, he was a big brother figure for
Shout out to
young
Haven.
Sean or Jay-Z.
Yeah. Shout out
Headache was
Shine
dope.
44.
You know, and I think what people don't get about it, they think they hear the lyrics of Snitch and things like that, and they think he pointing the finger at the Haven. That's not what's happening. He's retaliating. The Haven, he always explained it. He's retaliating in a mental war because you said something about my mom's. Okay, now I'm gonna play with you. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna point the finger at you. I'm gonna insinuate something at you. If you insinuating with something with my moms and my families, and DeHaven understood that at the time.
Right.
Big shout out to Big Headache. I love
Shout
them
out
type
to
of
Headache,
brothers
man.
because
Shout
they
out.
inspirational. Those dudes was outside. They wasn't no suckers. I respect the Jay-Z and DeHaven. I'm from
Yeah.
Brownsville, but Best Star had their own hustle. They was dudes that was outside getting to it, and you had to be strong to do that. So I don't knock those guys in any way. I have a respect for them because I understood that it wasn't easy. People could just say, "Oh, Jay-Z hung with the Haven." That's not enough. That's
Nah,
not enough.
nah. That's real.
The Haven was tough. That's not enough because everybody was tough in Brooklyn. So that's the thing. Everybody had to be tough or stay in the house. So if Jay-Z was outside, he had to be somebody to be outside as well.
That's
So
real. That's real. That's real feel. For sure, for sure. Can you recall your first time picking up the microphone, and what did your family and peers think of your journey to hip hop?
I was 11, and my family thought that was the weirdest thing for me because I was an introvert. Before that, I can draw. I always knew how to draw. I was really quiet and
Yeah,
shy. So for me to
yeah,
start rhyming, now I can vocalize my thoughts. It's like
yeah,
I don't see how you're gonna make money for that, but okay, he's being creative, so I can't really knock him, but he's being creative. You know?
yeah. That's real spill. Next question, man. It's another fan question. New York City, the mecca of hip hop. What did you feel about people saying the South took over and New York rappers aren't trending as much?
That's perception and is accepted because just like knowledge, just like sound,
Yeah,
things travel in waves. It's ups, downs, valleys, and peaks. So it's gonna come back around. It's gonna be things that was intelligent that was popular. It's
yeah,
gonna be things that was ignorant that was popular. And there's gonna be waves of that in each community. I look at it like when somebody's popular, it's because it was new to them. And the flag
yeah.
is being planted. Just like
Yes, sir.
going to the North Pole. with the flag, or going to the moon with the flag. RZA,
Mm-hmm.
for example, is a Brooklyn rapper, a Brooklyn born and raised dude, but he planted a flag in Staten Island. So
Yeah.
that was special because nobody was really doing that in Staten Island. So it showed a blueprint for other states. So we seen it that way also. Okay, Atlanta is hot now. Okay, Brooklyn used to be hot. The Bronx used to be hot.
That's
Queens
real.
used to be hot.
That's
You
real.
know, we even
Yeah.
in our own boroughs we have, oh, Queens is better than Brooklyn this week. So it's
Yeah.
waves. So we embraced
Yeah.
that. The West Coast was hot.
That's
They
real.
had
That's real.
a spill. I look forward to seeing the Midwest get hot the way they always been. I always been
Yeah,
a
for
fan of
sure.
Twister and people from that area. The Speed Not Mobsters and what's his name?
Yeah.
Legendary Trackster. I always been a fan of his production. So I look forward to everybody getting their wave. Texas. I want to see Oklahoma show up
Mm-hmm.
eventually. You
That's
know.
real. That's real. For sure. For sure. On to the next question, man. Welcome to Blacksville. Who produced the record, and what was it like rapping over a Biggie Small sample?
Welcome to Blacksville was produced by a friend of mine by the name of I Am Cosmic. At the time, his name was Bill Cosmic, but he had to change the name due to being current. But he's a dope producer with the Cannibal Ox fame. He produced for the Blade of the Ronin project, but me and him was working close together at that time. So when I heard what he did with that, I just said, all right. I knew what that was. It's Biggie talking to a place he hung out. He hung out in Brownsville. That's
Yeah.
where he
Yeah.
rolled dice at. He was with Pop
That's
from the
real.
barbershop, a local street figure, a street dude that I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
personally. So I know
Word.
Pop now.
Shout out Pop then. For sure. Man, that's crazy, man. Crazy hip hop stories, man. Who are some lyricists you can say helped molded you into the artist you are today?
Of course, I gotta mention Rakim Allah, a
Shout out
major
Rakim.
influence for how he did what to me I seen what James Brown did to music, where he slowed time down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he had a superpower to control time and and,
Yeah.
and and put the beat on the one. Rakim did that. He made everybody slow down for a second and pay attention. You know,
Mm-hmm.
while rhyming fast and harmoniously, he slowed
Yeah.
down when he wanted to.
Yeah.
He changed the tempo. He made you pay attention. He made you lower your voice a little bit. Where you wasn't just screaming in the booth anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So people like that. People like Twister, of course.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Twister and what he brought
For sure.
to the
Yeah.
table,
Yeah.
his
Yeah. For
contribution.
sure.
I always like um um Jazzo and JAYZ. I'm a big fan of Jazzo and JAYZ, the originators, and
Yeah,
what
man.
they
You
brought.
spoke of Memphis Bleak. You say you grew up with Memphis Bleak, or you was politicking with him. What's that story?
Memphis Bleeker is a childhood friend of mine's, a next door neighbor from the same building. I grew up in a building in Brownsville called
Okay.
619 Rockaway. Bernadette Price is from that building.
Mm,
Sean
mm.
Price's wife. Uh,
Okay.
um, we had people like Mike Tyson be in that building. So
Yeah.
Bleak, he moved from Brownsville to Best Eye. That's one of my childhood friends. Just like the
That's right,
Haven and
Memphis Bleak.
yeah, big shout out to
Yeah. He
Bleak.
pushing that rock solid. You know what I'm saying? I've been seeing him on the Instagram pushing that shit.
Rock Solid and Warehouse Music Group. He got the label Warehouse Music Group.
Yeah, yeah.
Big,
Shout out Warehouse.
big shout
Peace
out
and
to his
love.
brother Boss Man too. That's my
For
heart.
sure. Most definitely. All right. What was your message to the listeners on the Aggressive Yet Selective album title?
Um, do it your way. That was
Okay.
the number one message. Against all odds, do it your way. I had record deals on the table. never really came to fruition. I've been had different major deals. I had indie deals. I just was shelved. I was set on the for other projects. So when I got to a point in my life where I was frustrated but still wasn't emotional, I got to work and I put it out independently. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what the metaphor mean. Just do it yourself. Aggressive yet selective is a metaphor for doing it yourself, for going to the library and researching, for being a person who study rather than asking other people for answers. Do it yourself. That's what aggressive yet selective is.
Man, that's the message. We need that message right now, man, in this world today. I appreciate that. Next question is another fan question. What was the East Coast and West Coast war real in your perspective?
Everything is real. That's the best way I could describe that. But perception is real also, because what's real to somebody looking at it might be false to another. Real because people passed away. Real
Yeah.
because people was invested into it. Money was invested into it. Not real because it wasn't like a whole state was against another state. That
Yeah.
wasn't real. I was in California during that time. It wasn't like
Yeah.
people from California hated people from New York and vice versa. New York never hated California. That wasn't real. I was alive and well in that time. That was two record labels going at it, or two artists. Look at it like this. Suge Knight was trying to sign Craig Mack
Okay.
during that time. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If he could get him, he could get him. He would have signed Biggie if he could get him. Business is business.
Yeah,
But
that's real.
you have onlookers that want to show and prove that they down, that'll say, I put in work for you. That happened on the East Coast and that happened on the West Coast, whether the artist knew it or not. It was onlookers that said, I'm getting in on that. Somebody saw Haitian Jack and Tupac have an argument and say, I don't care what Jack say, I'm robbing that dude. I respect Jack. I don't like how he talked to him. That happens. Then you got on the West Coast, you got people saying, I don't like how he talked to Suge. Got jumped up. Big Jake jumped up. It's onlookers. This type of stuff happened. Somebody might have said, oh, that dude has something to do with Tupac going back to the essence. So we doing something about that. And it don't be real. It don't be like somebody had a planned out war to go against, you know,
That's
real in
real.
that sense. But
Yeah,
casualties, things happen.
for sure. For sure. On to the next question. Go dumb and dump on them. How did you get Daz Dillinger on the record, and what was the studio session like?
That was a blessed studio session because the first album I got him on it, Aggressive Yet Selective, because he got on a remix for Ruler Steps. But the second album, it was like I'm sitting in the studio with him, feeding the dogs, and he like, I'm going to go feed the dogs. Listen to these beats. And when he came back, I had a verse on one of those beats. I
Mm,
was just hyped, like, yo, this is fire. He like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah,
let me get on that.
that's
I'm
real.
like, let you get on it. It's yours to get on. It's yours.
Right, right, right. But he was just showing that love though.
Yeah, so that was
That's
dope
real.
to see him make the beat and jump on it. You know,
Yeah,
that was dope to see
yeah. Daz,
because
Daz always been one of them ones, man, from the beginning, man.
one of the greatest producers, hip hop producers,
Shout out Daz Dillinger.
yeah, in existence. Yeah, my brother Devon the Law Zigzag. He got knowledge of self.
Oh,
He
okay,
a
God.
righteous one too. So
That's love, God. For sure. On to the next question. K Bligger, how did you come up with the creative design for that merch?
frustration again. Being somebody on the road, being a person that helped out with other companies, being behind the scenes behind other companies like um Bigo NYC Bartholomew. Look up his clothes. He got some real dope clothing out right now. I was behind the scenes helping out and watching with that. And being in the industry, watching artists put out just regular merchandise that couldn't compare with rockstar merchandise, if you understand what I mean. So I wanted to see, let me compete with them on that level, not matching them or being, equal, but, compete in the sense where I'm going to mash that out, not only, but then go into my fashion sense and bring that to the table, because I can draw. I always had that ability. So, but to pick and choose and be a curator of this time of things that, making choices like, oh, this is what we wore, that one out of style. Let's bring this back and add on to that. That's what K Bligger merch is about. Kenyattah Black is K Bligger. K is Kenyattah, Bligger is Black. So Kenyattah Black is K Bligger's merchandise.
For sure. For sure. Next question, man. What is today's mathematics for the people?
Yes, sir. Today's mathematics is wisdom culture, albeit born equality. Wisdom culture is the expression of one's way of life, bringing about a change in how we measure and walk the planet Earth. We walk the planet Earth a year to every mile, but also 24 hours. So every day we renew our history by saying what's today's mathematics.
Yeah. Most
The
definitely.
wise man of the East, black man, makes his history equal to his home circumference. So we measure the planet Earth as well as we measure space and time. And time is just a measurement of motion. So that's why wisdom culture is about the expressions of one's way of life.
That's love, God. For sure. On to the next question. What feeling did you get when Ghostface Killer brought you on stage in memory of Old Dirty Bastard?
I felt vindicated for a brother. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, watching them kind of do this spill. I see them do that. I seen Ghost do this before, where he pulls up somebody from the audience and they kind of boo the person who messed up. In my mind, I said, that was cool, but I'm not going to allow him to do that one tonight. I'm kind of jumping in on that. Y'all not booing Old Dirty Verse at all.
Yeah.
That was my homie. I looked up to Dirty in Brooklyn, United Kingdom. We from the, Brooklyn Zoo, United Kingdom population clique. So we connect. I said, all right, I'm going up there to do Dirty Verse and honor him. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know if Ghost and them see me, but I'm doing that. And it felt like vindication because I seen his young son watching and he seen somebody love and care about those bars. And I think that inspired him also, young Dirty Bastard, because he was out there in Atlanta watching that.
Man, that's a crazy hip hop story, man. You got a few of them, man. I'm gonna ask you some more. But now I need to get your what's your intake being from New York? I got to ask you about your thoughts. P. Diddy trial, man. Can you speak on that? What you think about that?
To be honest, I think that it's kind of weird. It's like it might sound insensitive. I just, it's just my opinion. It sounds to me like a rich alternative lifestyle and domestic violence case blew up out of proportion. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, okay, a domestic violence and y'all turning that into a RICO. I'm not saying I'm not pro or con for him, but that's what it sounds like far as intelligent minds is concerned. Like somebody hit somebody back in 2016. So, okay, we never knew about that. We feel we should have knew. The feds feel they should have knew. So let's research him now. Maybe we got something. It's like, all right, y'all got a drug addict. Y'all should have got him when he was really powerful. If that was the case, y'all got a drug addict right now, and it don't matter.
That's real. That's real. On to the next question. What's your top 5 favorite artists of all time?
top 5 artists of all time. James Brown.
Okay.
Rakim. I like JAYZ. One of the greatest of all time. Artistry. Michael Jackson.
Man, rest up, Mike.
And I think the band Sade.
Okay.
Unsung hero. Because all of these people are so important, because if you listen to them and study their contribution, you get a chance to see that they was brilliant. They was geniuses.
Yeah, that's real. Okay. What message do you have today for the youth?
Consistency is the key. No, I can't tell them how to do it. I just tell them to stay on it. They gotta have their own bumps and bruises. They gotta fall and hit they gotta make their own. Because understanding comes in time. I could show you what to do. I could tell you how to do it, but the experience is the best teacher. So understanding comes in time. They gotta walk it out.
For sure. Last question, man. If you could bring back any era of hip hop, what era would it be?
96. 30 years ago. I wish that people could see not only hip hop, but that year was so great because you had System of a Down, you had Tupac, Busta Rhymes, Old Dirty Bastard, the Fuji, Dub C and the Mad Circle.
Yeah.
You had so much great, not just like one line. You had No Doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You had Red Hot Chili Peppers. You get what I'm saying? You had Twister.
Man, it was crazy era, man. Definitely was a crazy era. You got any sponsors before we get out of here? Anybody want to represent any sponsors?
I just want to give a big shout out to the Low Lives.
Okay, shout out to Low Lives.
Thurston Howell, Big Blow.
What's up for the Low Life?
2 Wells Up. They got an event this weekend out in Orlando. If you out in Orlando, go to Donny Park and look up the Low Lives. That's my family from Brooklyn to Orlando. They're having a Brooklyn Orlando event this weekend. Look up everything Airtight, etc. Look up everything Kenyattah with an H. KENYTTAH BLACK. If you just look that up, Bandcamp, YouTube, you're gonna be surprised that a kid been in this business a long time, and I'm independently putting out music. I'm independently putting out my own clothing. I'm independently curating hip hop for the next generation. You know, it's a love. It's a love label. It's nothing that's making me rich, but it's a love label, you know.
For sure. Peace and love. With that being said, this is another episode of When I Fell in Love with Hip Hop. That's Kenyattah Black. You know, I'm Israel Picasso. We tuning live from St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis to Brooklyn. We out of here. Peace and love.
Yes, sir. Peace and supreme love.